CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase is preparing to be deposed in lawsuits regarding the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The U.S. Virgin Islands and an anonymous woman sued J.P. Morgan Chase last year, accusing the bank of turning a blind eye toward Epstein's illegal sex trafficking. The Virgin Islands also claims J.P. Morgan kept doing business with Epstein even after executives were made aware of sexual abuse and trafficking allegations against them. The head of J.P. Morgan, Jamie Dimon, is scheduled to be deposed this month regarding the bank's alleged role in Epstein's fraud. Global News 24 hours a day, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Scott Carr, and this is Bloomberg. Now a check of Bloomberg Sports.
The Yankees are left on late afternoon games today. The struggling Yankees lost to the sibling Tampa Bay Rays 5-4 last night. The Mets got past the Colorado Rockies 1-0 thanks to a Brandon Nimmo solo homer. The Devils lost in Carolina 6-1 and now trail that second-round playoff series 2 games to none. The Celtics and Suns won their respective NBA playoff games. And the Kentucky Derby is later today. Porto is the morning line favorite. 19 horses in the field. That's the Bloomberg Sports Update. Masters in Business with Barry Riddles on Bloomberg Radio.
I'm Barry Riddles. You're listening to Masters in Business on Bloomberg Radio. My extra special guest this week is Julian Salisbury. He is the Chief Investment Officer of Asset and Wealth Management at Goldman Sachs, where he is also a member of the Management Committee, co-chair of the Asset Management Investment Committee, where he helps make decisions on private equity, infrastructure, growth equity, credit, and commercial real estate investments. Julian Salisbury, welcome to Bloomberg.
Thanks, Barry. It's great to be here.
I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. Let's start out with a little bit of your background. You begin in audit practice at KPMG. What was the original career plan?
Honestly, I didn't really have a long-term plan. I grew up in a family where my mother was a mathematician, my father was a chemist. I didn't really know much about the world of finance. Investment banks were not really a known concept in the area I grew up. So I graduated college, realized I needed to get a job, and my dad had always said, many young kids get this advice: doctor, lawyer, accountant, engineer, and accountant seemed like a reasonable option, and I kind of stumbled my way into accounting, and what I found was it was just a phenomenal training ground for somebody who wants to then go on to invest, and especially doing more micro-level analysis. That background of being an accountant was just great bedrock training.
Very precise, very specific. So how do you then go from tax and audit practice to finance and investing? Very different field.
Yeah, I'd love to tell you there was some great master plan, but in the UK, when you qualify as a chartered accountant, first of all, you have to complete your 3 years training. So people these days want to change job after a year, 18 months, but you have to finish the 3 years. I finished the 3 years. I qualified the following week. I lined up a bunch of job interviews with a variety of banks. And again, I ended up in the financial services audit practice at KPMG, so I got to know banks a little bit, and frankly, I had a big able. So I interviewed with a bunch of banks, got a number of job offers by the end of the week, and joined Goldman Sachs in October 1998.
So let me throw one of your own quotes at you, because I feel like it's so revealing. Quote, "The world of finance isn't as complicated as newcomers expect. It's simply shrouded in techno jargon." Explain what you mean by that.
I continue to find this true to this day, but when I first joined the firm, I was doing P&L and risk reporting for a credit trading desk, and people start talking about DVO on this and duration that, jump to default this, futures versus cash. I didn't know what any of these terms meant, so I took it upon myself to go off and took a course in bond math, took another course in derivatives, and realized the underlying fundamental concepts were barely, it wasn't even high school math in most cases. And it was really more about learning the different dialects. And it's interesting because you'll find people who'll be fluent in one dialect, and then they become fluent in credit dialects, and then you talk to somebody who works in an equities business, and they start throwing Greeks at you, and you've never come across these terms. Again, it sounds highly complicated. most people you could sit them down in half an hour and explain, the majority of the concepts.
That's been kind of true in a lot of professions over history, is that almost by design, their language keeps outsiders at arm's distance. And hey, if you want to learn our secrets, you have to pay us. Are you suggesting that all of this techno jargon is just to create a little mystique around Wizards of Finance?
I wouldn't say that's entirely but what you find is, and this becomes more and more true, I think, is people become very specialized. In order to compete and win in so many things today in finance, you have to be super specialized. So you find people who are super deep in one area, one narrow area, and it might be investment grade credit or distressed credit, and they all develop their own little system of useful terms, but then they end up becoming almost like a barrier that makes it hard for an outsider who hasn't grown up in the world of finance, who doesn't have, a father who ran a hedge fund or an uncle who ran a private equity firm. It's hard for them to break in without some way of developing that jargon.
So that shorthand works for the practitioners, and there's no malicious intent there. It's just, hey, that's how these people talk in their chosen specialty.
Yeah, it's quite natural.
Really interesting. So you mentioned you joined Goldman Sachs in 1998. Coming up on your 25th anniversary. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's pretty good. Heady times in 98. What's kept you at Goldman for 25 years?
Look, I think, first of all, it's the people, just super high quality people across the business, no matter what part of the firm they operate in. Just the average intensity level, integrity level, capabilities. It's just really hard to match when you go to other organizations. So people is a huge part of it. Another part of it is I've been lucky in that although I've been in one firm for 25 years, I've just done so many radically different things.
You've been in a lot of different divisions. You've had a lot of different job descriptions.
Yeah, I've been in, I think, all but one division at this point. And I've worked in 3 different offices, 2 continents. I would say it's been a little more evolutionary after the first 5 or 6 years. But that ability to constantly be learning and at times be quite entrepreneurial in terms of starting new businesses. So what I tend to find is after 3 or 4 years, it depends how big and complicated the task is, but after, in some cases it might be 2 years, in other cases it may take a little longer, 3, 4 years. You start to think what's next. You develop breadth. A lot of things are hard to start with, and then it's like, I love sports analogies. It's like lifting weights. At some point you have to start changing the exercise or increasing the weights.
Right.
Otherwise you stop developing and learning. And sometimes it's a change, and then you can go back to what you were doing before, and you come back and you've benefited from that cross training. But it's the ability to constantly learn and keep adapting.
So you mentioned a couple of continents. You've worked in London and Moscow and now New York. How have your roles changed in each of those locations, and what do you learn working in very different parts of the world?
Yeah, so I joined, as I said, in 98, and I was doing P&L and risk reporting for the investment grade trading desk and then the high yield desk. I ended up being hired onto the high yield desk as a research analyst and did that for a couple of years. And then I was the beneficiary of the TMT bubble bursting in 2001. So the whole sector that I was covering went bankrupt. So I went from being a publishing high yield research analyst to a distressed debt analyst and investor.
Same companies, just...
Same companies, yeah.
They just became distressed.
Yeah, the high yield bonds quickly went to zero, and then you're buying the bank loans at discounted prices. So, and that was fairly evolutionary. And then in about 2003, we set up a group called the European Special Situations Group, which was a multi-asset class proprietary investing business that was centered around credit, but really invested in credit, real estate, growth equity. I led the corporate research team there for a few years. And then, in a fit of madness, I guess, at the end of 2006, the credit markets were pretty uninteresting. There wasn't a lot to do. It was kind of bad companies issuing low quality bonds. And I thought about, what's next. I actually went out to visit the team in Asia